All right. Looks like we got most of the cameras off, everybody. But so I'm going to just welcome our group here as I continue to admit people into our virtual knowledge exchange. My name is Skip Weiner. I am the manager of education for NEFA. This is our monthly knowledge exchange. We do these every month on the third Tuesday of the month at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. They're on a number of different topics. Today's is based on strategy, and we'll have our panel will be talking about technology and AI strategy in with regards to our industry. So I'm going to have the panel introduce themselves here in just a moment. As always, I would encourage you to ask your questions live or send them in the chat. I'll be monitoring that, or just raise your hand. This is a small enough group that we can do that, and we'll call on you. This will be recorded and posted to our learning management system within the week. And with that, I'm going to introduce Rohan, and then Rohan can introduce, transfer to the rest of his panel. But if you can go ahead and introduce yourself, Rohan. That would be perfect, and we'll go from there. Thank you, everybody.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Skip, and thank you, NEFA, for allowing us to present on these knowledge exchange roundtables. We are here driving this roundtable in the month of September as well as in the month of December. So if you have any follow-up questions and relevant topics which we can follow up on, we'll be happy to do that in the December roundtable as well. I have the pleasure and privilege of having an august panel here. My good friends Chris and Frank. Frank is an industry veteran and has been in the industry for more than 30 years. Chris is a Monitor Innovator Icon Award winner and again has driven transformation across multiple companies over his career. We have Kent as well from DataCRaiM and more than 25 years of experience. So we have a great panel. We're going to talk about technology strategy and a little bit about me and DataCRaiM as well. DataCRaiM has been in the industry vertical for a while, and we have driven transformative efforts in terms of empowering CRM with data and AI. We have worked on innovative use cases. We do both services as well as products. You'll see a sneak peek. We wanted to offer some tangible examples as well in terms of KYB, KYC, and app intake. So you'll see that today. But today's talk, just to kick it off, before I hand it over to Chris, Frank, and Ken to introduce themselves, we're going to talk about data governance. We're going to talk about the importance of having single source of truth. We're going to talk about solutions which are there in the marketplace, which enable you to leverage data and AI and empower your CRM. We're going to give you a basic framework of how to get started, right? Take some baby steps. The key is experimentation, proof of concepts, smaller projects, quick wins, and return on investment. So that's the theme that we are going to touch upon today. On that note, let me hand it over first to Chris, then to Frank, and then to Kent to introduce themselves. Chris?
Hi, thank you, Rohan. Good morning, good afternoon to everybody. Thank you to NEFA. Thank you to DataCRaiM for inviting me to this event. I'm very honored to be able to share some of my experiences and knowledge around this topic specifically. I've been in the equipment finance industry for over 20 years. I've led a number of digital innovative strategies that partnered with Rohan and Frank and many others in the past. So thank you, everybody, and looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you, Chris. Frank?
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Frank Swan with Beacon Consulting Company. I have 40 years of experience in the equipment finance industry, mostly in the independent side. Work very closely with Rohan and Chris on other initiatives and built a lot of innovative ideas into the equipment finance arena. And I'm going to spend some time today talking about the importance of your data analytics, and single source of truth.
Thank you, Frank. Kent?
Good morning and good afternoon. I come at this from a little different perspective. I have more than 20 years of technical experience. I've started 3 different startups, primarily in the med device industry, but in that role, I was really exposed to the financial services integrations with NetSuite and e-commerce, and took a real passion to it. And kind of a side note, one of the companies that I had come in and support me was actually Rohan's company. And so I had reached out to him and told him my interest in learning more about financial services and bringing some of my technical expertise in and seeing what I can do to help leverage AI. And so I'm really looking forward to this discussion, learning more about the industry. And then I'll probably be kicking off some demos here shortly as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Kent. So we want to keep this more interactive. We'll go about the theme that I mentioned, but feel free to ask questions. We are going to talk about data governance, single source of truth. We have a few demos sprinkled in as well, but we want to make it interactive, right? So if you have any questions, please feel free to interject and stop us. We'll be happy to take them as we proceed. And then we have also budgeted about 10 to 15 minutes at the end to answer specific questions. So maybe just to kick things off, right? Folks who are on the call, do use the chat feature of Zoom and try to answer the question, what's your top technologies challenge when it comes to tech strategy within equipment finance? You might be a broker lessor, you might be a funding source. Based on your functions, right? Just try to answer that question. We'll try to weave that into our narrative. But Chris, if you can help kick things off. A lot of times in the age of AI, right? So many things are going on. Technology is evolving at a rapid pace. Every month, it seems that we have a new model now. But the important thing is business problems and use cases. And when you try to solve and work on those use cases, data is very important, right? So Chris, maybe you can kick things off from a data governance standpoint, right? That could be a nice baby step, the first step. So why don't you provide some inputs on data governance to kick things off, Chris?
Yeah. Thank you, Rohan. So, data governance, just the word obviously sounds intimidating, sounds bureaucratic, and sounds like a lot of work. However, I can attest, and we'll share a little bit more kind of later in our discussion, that data governance is really the foundation in being able to activate your digital tools, your digital solutions, and really enable your strategies, whether it's in business use cases or more broadly. And Frank will talk a little bit more about single source of truth and analytics, but really having good data, having data integrity, data that people trust, that's accessible and meets the compliance requirements. Really enables not only automation and AI, but also analytics and really understanding how the business is performing, how the solutions that you're putting in are performing. Governance, just the word sounds slow, and it gives the impression of being slow and intimidating. But I can attest from past experiences that a good sound data governance strategy doesn't slow down innovation. It really helps accelerate innovation. So it makes the tools that you're using far more trustworthy, much more scalable, and more aligned with strategic goals and ultimately your customer experience. The impact of doing that doesn't have to be broad-based. I think we're going to talk here about, let's distill it down to use cases. So really identifying a specific use case and leaning into that as then the stepping stone to the next initiative. So we all have technical debt, we all have data debt. There's no denying that. But you have to start somewhere, and so starting somewhere is in more of a small sense is really was the instrument that made a number of initiatives that I've worked on in the past, that Frank and I have worked on, as well as Rohan as a partner has worked on. So hopefully that provides some kind of clarity, context, but that would be sort of my answer, Rohan.
Yeah. No, thank you, Chris. And I think logically speaking, like you mentioned, right? So you don't have to boil the ocean. You have to start somewhere. You have to make it use case driven. And a good starting point is data governance. When you talk about data governance, it has to go hand in hand from a single source of truth standpoint as well, right? So maybe Frank, you can build a little bit on top of that and talk to us about the importance of having that single source of truth.
Yeah, thank you, Rohan. And in equipment finance, any company, one of their most important assets is their data. Just think of all the historical information you have at your fingertips for many years that could be termed transactions. You have all your in-process information that you're going ahead and processing currently. You've got your deals that are already booked and billing and collecting against and everything from that perspective. Think of all that data, and if you have good policies and data governance, like Chris talked about, you could leverage your data. One of the things that's one of the most important risks, if you ignore your data, could lead to missed opportunities, inefficiencies, and competitive lag within the marketplace with equipment finance, different companies. I'm going to spend a little time breaking down some key risks associated with not leveraging your data efficiently. One being missed opportunities. First one being revenue loss. Without data analysis, patterns in equipment behavior, pricing strategies, or market trends go unnoticed, leading to lost revenue opportunities. The second thing is unutilized assets. Companies may fail to identify underperforming assets or investment opportunities that data could easily surface. Thirdly, productivity gains and left untapped. Advanced analytics can cover process automation or optimization opportunities. Ignoring data means these remain hidden and not taken advantage of. The next thing I'd like to talk a little bit about is operational efficiencies. Manual processes. Without data insights driving automation, finance teams remain bogged down with error-prone, time-consuming manual tasks. Inaccurate forecasting. Poor use of historical and real-time data weakens budgeting, cash flow projections, and maybe risk modeling. And last, wasted resources. Inefficient spend allocation and redundant vendor relationships may go unnoticed without data-driven spend analytics. And last, maybe most important, is competitive lag. Slower decision making. Competitors use real-time dashboards and predictive analytics can pivot faster, outmaneuvering slower, gut-driven decision makers. Poor customer experiences. Data insights enable personalized and timely financial services. Without them, companies struggle to meet modern customer expectations. Very important from a standpoint of satisfying your customers. Last is failure to innovate. Financial innovation is data-driven. Ignoring data can result in outdated offerings, especially in the AI world today. Using your data with analytics around it can lead you to make some smart and fundamental decisions, maybe outdistancing your competitors. Real quickly, missed opportunities lead to lost revenue, untapped growth, stagnant products. Operational efficiencies, higher costs, errors, and slower workflows. And competitive lag, falling behind digital-first competitors. Thanks, Rohan.
Thank you, Frank. So we have a question from one of the attendees. Anne has a question. Hey, I'm getting new systems to work with our current proprietary database, which was developed in the early 2000s, right? So standard challenge. Chris, you also mentioned that we all have technical debt. These are the practical challenges that we work with. So to answer Anne's question, right? So this is a key challenge which many of us are having. So how do you get around things like those? And there's also a human element, right? Chris, Frank, and Kent, of dealing with technical debt, getting new systems to work with old databases and stuff. So with that kind of an example, Chris, maybe you can chime in and talk about some baby steps. Where do you start, right? How do you get these new systems to work with legacy databases and stuff? When it comes to data governance, what's the human element, right? How do you rally teams together to work on projects like those? And how do you drive digital transformation in that kind of a scenario?
Yeah, that's not an uncommon or unusual challenge, to say the least. And I'd say it's multifaceted. The first place I'd start would be it has to be a cultural shift within any organization. It has to be a innovative, first technology-enabled culture that is really going to drive different ways of doing things. And so maybe not to necessarily specifically answer this question is and I've faced these challenges along with Frank in our past, is we have a process or we have a procedure that is based upon legacy architecture, based upon legacy processes or access to data technology. And too often we would go down the path of designing that same process into a new technology as opposed to sort of assessing the process so that the technology could be utilized to its fullest. That eliminates a lot of things. That eliminates customization, that eliminates creating potential additional redundancies, and then you get into a whole maintenance kind of situation. So really, things can't be done in silos, I should say. You rally the organization around, you have the right stakeholders, you have the right partners that come to the table that are able to provide the right expertise that allow you to re-engineer or reassess your processes to meet a technology and to be able to connect that technology. Frank had talked a little bit about single source of the truth, and everybody has technical debt, as we all know. Sometimes systems don't talk to the other, or you have redundant data in different systems and it never matches up. And so there's a lot of different API solutions, regardless of whether the technology is from the 2000s or it's from sometime more recently, is to be able to connect that data. But that all kind of is around a data governance, a data strategy, as well as a technology architecture and platform for the business needs.
Thank you, Chris.
And just maybe to add on to what Chris said is, in the equipment finance world today, not everybody might be on an end-to-end solution. They might be on multiple platforms, a different front end, a different back end, other CRM or other capabilities, or even some historical platforms where they might not want to convert. We see a lot of the landscape is that we talk about single source of truth is pulling all that data, regardless of the different platforms, and consolidating it into a warehouse or some other facility, then that all that data will be combined, and to be able to report and do analytics off of it is really important because you don't necessarily have to maybe convert data or do some other things within the marketplace. You do what the best fit is for your organization to consolidate it to single source of truth, do all your algorithms and all your formulas, and then move that to your analytics platform.
Thank you, Chris and Frank.
Rohan, can I just add one thing? Just
yeah, sure.
points.
Sure, Ken. Yes.
And this is a really, as everybody said, it's a very common challenge. I will just add two really brief points. One is don't lead with technology. I would say we're in a time in our evolvement in technology where we can pretty much tackle any challenge with technology. That the solution we can get to. I think what you need to think about is what are the business cases? What are the really top use cases that you can identify that you're being impacted by the challenges of having a legacy system? And then by doing that, you're actually identifying a problem that needs to be addressed, and it gives you kind of a roadmap. But secondly, it gives you that stakeholder buy-in, right? So now you can go to your leadership team and say, look, this is the impact that I'm experiencing, and this is why we want to invest in this solution.
Great points, Kent. Yep. So lead with your business problem, lead with the use case. You have technology and tools available to solve them. We have one question on the chat, by the way. Chris is asking any technology tools worth exploring within the data governance space and lessons learned from exploring and doing the implementations with those tools. So we can weave that question into the next phase when we talk about customer experience, right? So maybe Chris, you can help kickstart that discussion around use cases, say around app entry and KYB, KYC space. What kind of tools are worth exploring to Chris Gibson's point, which he's raising in his chat, a message, and lessons learned. So maybe you can kick things off, Chris. What are customers expecting when it comes to cycle times within equipment finance You don't want to lose business to your competitor.
Mhm.
So what's top of mind from a customer experience standpoint? What's the low-hanging fruit when it comes to use cases where you can quickly drive some innovation? What tools are available? And obviously, we're going to show a few tools as well for the tangibility of this whole thing, right? We're going to demonstrate Autodocs and we're going to demonstrate Business Intellect as well. But Chris, maybe if you can kick things off for the starter use cases around app entry and tools that are worth exploring from a customer experience standpoint, and talk a little bit about what customers demand these days.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so great question, and I'll address that, and I'll kind of try to add a little bit something to Chris's question in the chat, and I think Frank can add some too from some past experience. And so as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, a little bit about breaking it down into specific use cases. I think we've all kind of mentioned that, so not to overwhelm ourselves and to boil the ocean, which is maybe one of my favorite sayings to say. So Rohan already used it, but there's in the equipment finance world as a lender, the probably the lowest of low-hanging fruit is the app entry. Unless you're a large bank or a large captive, you're probably receiving applications through a whole host of different platforms. Some could be coming through your website or through third-party portals that are out there. Some could be coming through APIs, but a majority, at least from my experience, come via a PDF document that could be handwritten, that could be typed, that could be in various qualities and various levels of completion. And so the only way to really do that is to have someone manually key over that information. Now, we're in a unique opportunity now with the acceleration of AI, of being able to really make that process way more efficient. It's not going to be foolproof, but if you're able to even get 50% of the flow through, that's going to be a significant lift in terms of efficiency. And ultimately, what a customer expects is instantaneous response. It's just like us when we go to Amazon or we go to any e-commerce website is we want immediate response. We don't want to have to go through any sort of motions. Same is true in many respects, with exception to obviously the larger ticket. But if we're just talking about the flow kind of business, which I'm sure is all part of our portfolios, it's instant response, both at the customer end user level as well as any third party. And so that onboarding portion is the lowest hanging fruit to onboard a transaction, and then to push that through or pull that through the system. And we'll kind of talk about opportunities to make that even more efficient. But that's probably the most critical or the biggest value to an organization. A little bit with respect to that about data governance, that's also, I would say, the best place to start is when you're onboarding a transaction, that's the best place to start with adhering to data governance guidelines. And those data governance rules are established with data stewards. So these are not IT resources. These are people that are in the business who are working cross-functionally. So credit isn't just making data rules independent of operations and independent of accounting. They are collaborative. They're working together so that they're fulfilling the needs of each one, or not creating inefficiencies by product of something that they are or not doing further down the line. So I think that's important. And Frank, I'll let him talk a little bit here about maybe an experience as we brought in an integration in our past, and some of the tools that were leveraged, and some of the processes that were in place to be able to harmonize data, especially historical data. But the last kind of note I'll make here, Rohan, before you cut me off, because maybe I'm going too long, is in a past experience, we had put forth customer self-service capability through a portal. And when we launched it, we got great traction, we got great reception, but it didn't always fulfill the expectations that had been laid out. And when we traced it back, a lot of it came back to the way that data was entered or not entered that wasn't fulfilling the needs of what the customer was. So it really goes back to data. The technology worked fine, but if you don't onboard the data right up front, then it's not going to create the efficiencies, the self-service capability, and the speed, which is ultimately what the customer is looking for in their financing solution for equipment or otherwise.
And just to add
So,
on to what
yeah.
Chris was talking about from taking advantage of, and it really comes down to on that onboarding process is your account records. Whether you're loading a new customer, a new vendor, a new a financial partner or syndication partner, making sure that we always had stuff that was table driven and drop downs to make sure we had a consistency of the information coming in. Same thing around all the stuff around the app and unloading all the information. And third thing is your assets. We developed different catalogs of all the assets that we would put out on a lease or a loan, and making sure that everything was coming in the door was off that catalog and was consistent and always coming in the same way. Because if more free form, the more things you have on your front end, the bigger impact it's going to have on your reporting coming through the back end. We did use a number of different tools and API to verify some of the information around account records that Rohan's going to show you a little bit with some of these other products. And we would do overlays based on the APIs and some of the other things. But the biggest thing is having that consistency, like Chris said, is capturing your information as accurately and right on the front end coming in with as many different types of tables or drop downs or anything else to make sure your data is consistent and accurate.
Thank you, Chris and Frank. So like both these gentlemen mentioned, right, it comes down to having the right data, tackling the high value and low cost use cases upfront, which is the lowest hanging fruit. And obviously, I think one of the key lessons learned, right, since you asked, Chris, is continuous improvement is better than delayed perfection, right? So don't wait, right? There are partners available. Don't try to tackle the problem alone. Find a good partner, right? Technology partner, and make some baby steps. Some of these projects could be under 20K, under 15K, under few weeks of implementation, but start with that use case, which is giving you the biggest value for the buck. And I think those small projects, those small experiments, those proof of concepts would lead to something bigger, right? So once you sort out the app intake, for example, right? Once you have the right data coming in, data is crucial to drive AI, right? If it's garbage in, it's garbage out. You cannot have an artificial intelligence system operate on rubbish data, right? So tackle that use case first, right? Work with a partner, work with a technology partner who can enable that, and then lay out the foundation and build on top of it. Another good question that Barbara is asking: what is the cost to put an AI system together? One would that would be a good that would give a good protection for fraud, right? So we're going to touch upon KYB, KYC, compliance, tackling fraud and stuff. Barbara, just hang in there. We're going to show you a demo as well. I think it might be a good time to kind of get into the demos now. So Kent, if you can please share your screen. We have spoken about app intake. We have spoken about compliance. Barbara is asking about fraud and stuff. So maybe let's show things in action, right? So that people get a tangible view of the kind of tools which are available, which utilize AI and which can make life easier.
Okay, can everybody, or at least Rohan, can you tell me if you can see the screen?
Yeah, you can see the screen.
Outstanding. Okay, so this is really a great segue because a lot of what we've been talking about is getting several things, right? Getting forms in quickly, efficiently, accurately, trying to eliminate any possible human error. And there's been a lot of talk about AI and resources. The other aspect that I think is worth touching on is resources that might be used or dedicated to data entry. Being able to take that and automate it now gives organizations the ability to repurpose those resources and put them in something that's a little bit more impactful to the organization, be it customer service, be it on the operations side. But having that flexibility and that quality and the ROI will be quickly received once you roll out a tool like this. So what you're looking at here is our tool, which is called AutoDocs. And you log in, it's hosted at this point. And as mentioned earlier, you can attach any file. It could be a typewritten file. It could be a PDF file. It could even be an image. In this case, I'm going to open up a credit app here. And I'm going to go ahead and upload this so that it's now going through and it's parsing it. And it's taking both OCR, optical character recognition, and AI. So it's reading it through the OCR, but it's also learning. So if you have applications that are coming, and let's say, for example, it's the same person, it's handwritten, it's going to go ahead and read all that information, and it's going to learn that handwriting. So in the future, as more applications come in, there'll be less and less potential errors that might come through. Then eventually, it'll almost be non-existent. So here's the document that I'm uploading here, and in particular, just pay attention to the company name, the application name, and the business email. And that way we know we can track this particular document through the workflow. So coming back, the document that I just uploaded, this is just a way for us to illustrate what has come across to make sure that data has come across correctly. But more importantly, let me get this box out of the way. Zoom just jumped right in my way. Okay. Is it uploaded to our Salesforce instance? So here in our organization, we use Salesforce, but it could be anybody, any application such as Microsoft Dynamics or anything else. So here's our application. It got uploaded at 9/16. And if I click on it to verify, you'll see that it is actually American Whitewater, and it has the correct email address. So that quickly you can upload, and you can do batch uploads as well. Now, what's excellent about having good data in is you can now go to this particular account and use that data to do business verification. So here is American Whitewater. It's one of our accounts that we have in our test database. And you see here that I've already pulled a record. And the way I did it is I went to a button here that we've created, and it now links up, in this case, to Middesk. And it's pulling all down that KYC information and getting it real time into Salesforce. So this ties back to our single source of truth. So as it's going through the process, we're going to be prompted here. It's still verifying. And on the business record, it shows it's pending. So I'm going to jump over to the one I did yesterday just to review all the data that's coming down. And there's a whole slew of data that you can get and the background on the company. You can look at the addresses, if it's on a watch list, all the registrations that have come in, litigations, if they're part of litigations, and then all of these have hyperlinks so you can drill down even more specifically, and any liens and so forth. The last thing that I want to show that is really important as far as this is being able to go back and pull documents. So we not only can pull down the KYC, KYB information, but we can also request documents that are associated with this. Right now, we've got articles of incorporation, certificate of good standing. If I click on it, it'll start the process. And Frank, you had mentioned earlier about the importance of getting the documents. So while this is pulling down, maybe you can jump in and kind of help from a real world perspective how this is helpful.
So every finance organization has their own KYC, KYB rules coming in place. Whether they look at Social Secretary of State information coming back, Everybody has their own credit policies, past my prior life. Anything that it was a transaction over 250K, we had to pull in articles of incorporation to make sure credit was okay, looking at the organization, making sure they were in good standing. Um, excuse me, and having it at your fingertips. In the past, before using a product like this, it was a manual process. So it took time and effort based on the size of a transaction to get the information manually. This took the information in very quickly, giving you all the information you need. And we also built into it, say the credit app came in and said ABC CO for company, and where really the legal name was ABC Company spelled out, we actually transformed it based on the pool of the business identity, and it gives you a whole host of information that would take a lot of time to find. And the other scenario here, it also stores it within your platform. So it's
Mhm.
historical. It gives you the information to go back. If you get another app coming in a year later and you want to do a refresh, you have the same capabilities of pulling it to see if anything has changed, any expansions or non-expansions or anything else from that perspective. Again, it's all about speed, efficiency, and the last thing you want to, what you really want to do is get everything onboarded, get a credit decision very efficiently and fast, so that hopefully you win that business.
Yeah. Thanks, Frank. And here's the document. This is our test document that we downloaded. And I think what's a great point that Frank mentioned is we can not only store this on the Salesforce site, but you can actually have this go to some other repository. So any files that you download can be stored in any location. So now, all of this information is in one place. The last bit here is that we're working on is we actually have links to PayNet as well. So if you need that type of information, we can actually start pulling that information in and link that into a single source of truth. So I just want to get away from the technology and just state that what we have today is the ability to ingest documents, be it handwritten, be in a PDF or whatever format, get it in there accurately, get it in there quickly, and whatever their place is that you're working in, even in a proprietary world like yours, Anna, we can bring it in there, and then we can start looking at how is it going to address those business cases that are concerning you today.
So just to answer Barbara's question again, right? You asked, hey, what's the cost to put an AI system together? So imagine if you have 2 or 3 people, credit analysts, who are doing this manually, who are swivel chairing between your CRM of choice, whether it is Dynamics or Salesforce, and a third-party application like Equifax or Middesk or what have you. I mean, you don't need those 2 people to swivel chair and those credit analysts, right? You might better use and utilize their time elsewhere. And you have this system available for a fraction of the cost that you're spending right now for the full-time equivalent of 2 or 3 people to do this manually, right? So these kind of AI tools are available. Same goes for the app intake as well, right? Kent demonstrated Autodocs. And if you have like folks who are manually typing in and doing the data entry type of work, I mean, your competition is already using AI tools, the tools which we demonstrated. So you might want to kind of leverage those tools, which are at a fraction of the cost of those people. And you might want to cross-train and retrain those people and deploy them to higher value-added functions, which are directly pertinent to customer experience, right? In customer experience. So that's the pivot that folks have to do. There are other folks on the call as well. And many of you, I mean, we have been interacting from, say, the end-to-end cycle time standpoint, right? So customers, like Chris was saying, they're expecting contracts to be completed and executed in minutes instead of waiting for days, right? So we can talk about eDocs and e-sign automation, building on top of Salesforce and leveraging technology like DocuSign, wherein things and contract documents which used to take like weeks could be now executed in minutes or even seconds, right? Through end-to-end automation. Talking about automation, maybe Chris and Frank, if you guys can talk about various tools which are available from an automation standpoint, right? We have done AI predictive purchase with automation, whether it is robotic process automation or what have you. So just key learnings from those kind of projects. Chris, maybe you can start off. How do you implement an initiative like that, and how do you drive automation within an organization?
Yeah, so there's a lot of opportunities, to say the least, with driving automation, whether it's at the credit scoring or it's um, at some of the business development. I'll kind of touch on that because there's a pretty practical use case that we put in some time back, but we put in a opportunity where we were looking at two things. We were looking at internal data and a customer's behavior with us or their history with us. And then we were looking at third-party data. PayNet was one of those, as Kent had pointed out in his demo. And what we were looking at is when is a customer making their purchase decision, and how can we then leverage that information to start a drip campaign to realize that opportunity? And so we started small. We had a proof of concept, which really entailed much more manual activity than automated activity. And as that started to realize a couple $100 million in incremental financing opportunities in a year, we built the business case around automating that. So utilizing a RPA or robotic process automation, which really mimics, I mean, doesn't really mimic, it actually mimics the same thing that a human would do. In fact, you can watch the mouse. For those who haven't seen it, and so sorry if I'm talking down, but for those who haven't seen it, you literally see the mouse go and do the things that a human would do, and it just runs in like an overnight job, and then it would spit out the activities for then the business developers to go out and take action on, or to drop into one of our marketing automated campaigns, where then it would put together a promotional campaign that would flow through a cycle. So, something that would take per kind of client of 5, 6 minutes, at least, turned into be something that would happen in 5 or 6 seconds. And it would run without anyone having to touch it. It would run overnight. So when the salespeople and the business development administrators came in the next morning, everything was queued up and ready for them to take action on. So it's a perfect example. It was revenue generating, which that's what everybody wants to see. And it enabled the people that were otherwise going out manually doing it, now actually spending more time selling as opposed to churning through data and doing things in a more manual fashion.
And
Thank
just
you,
to
Chris.
add what Chris said is that besides using some of the robotics process, we used automated task generation to do two things. One is for mitigating risk, and the other thing is looking for how do I grow volume automatically without somebody scouring through the data by themselves. We would go automatically based on a new booking. We would send a welcome letter out to any one of the customers automatically. We would go ahead and after 30 days, our salesperson would get an automatic task assigned to them to say, call your customer. They've been on 30 days. They got their first invoice. Just check and see if they're going. Oh, by the way, you can see what equipment they have. Why don't you go ahead and see if they're looking for any additional financing or anything from that perspective? We automatically created tasks for anniversaries, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years into the loan or the lease from that perspective. And also on some of those PayNet refreshes, we also looked at if there was any downgrade on a customer from 6 months ago, a year ago, or 3 years ago, where all of a sudden their PayNet Master Score or anything else from that standpoint dropped, and it could be somewhat of a risk issue. We had that information created over to the credit side for them to take a look at from that side. So again, using your data is so beneficial for you guys to help you grow. And it helps you from a risk mitigation perspective. So a wealth of data that you have collected over all these years, to utilize it without people having to manually pull it out is a big benefit to any equipment finance organization.
Yeah, and just add one thing there. So there's many events that a customer could hit. And so the last thing we want to do is not look like we don't know what we're doing. So we wouldn't touch a customer if they had just been touched like the week or the month before with an event. So you don't want to wear them out with a bunch of prospecting or communication. So being mindful about not wearing them out, so then they opt out of everything. So so we were able to build in intelligence enough to say if something had happened or they were in the middle of a campaign already, not to trigger something that would then have a sort of a redundant activity ongoing. So that's some of the tricky points. So you want to make sure that you're not already trying to prospect the customer. They're not out for collections or not something else going on where you would not want to reach that customer, especially when you're pitching additional business.
Yeah. Even to the point on the remarketing side, right? Anything you do to terminate 120 days out, automatic task generation for the sales guy to get in touch with the client. We also look based on equipment classification, whether it's an operating lease or whatever the classification is. When the book value got to a point where the worth of the fair market value was a certain point, that was a perfect opportunity for us to come in and do an extension and/or going ahead and outfitting them with new equipment, knowing that that it's profitable for us to remarket and some other stuff. So again, it's usually utilizing your data, whether it's beginning, the end, the middle, at the end, or whether there's a remarketing event. So it allows you to really stay on top of your customer, your collateral, and everything else from a reporting and automatic generation perspective.
And various tools are available, right? And thank you for that, Chris and Frank. But I mean, just talking about simple marketing processes, right? I mean, you can talk about a welcome call journey, an anniversary call journey, or an end of term journey, like Frank was saying. And there are tools available like Marketing Cloud, right? And likewise on the Microsoft stack as well, which can make those calls and which can reach out to the customer at the right point, at the right time, in the right point of the buying cycle, and market the right service which they actually require, and it can be pushed out, right? So I mean, those are interesting examples. And even from a automating of risk intelligence standpoint, there could be a side advantage or an added advantage. Hey, I mean, if a customer is opening up shop, a new location in Omaha or elsewhere, right? I mean, pick an example. That can be a lead type of an opportunity as well.
Sure.
As a side advantage or an additional advantage, just from a risk intelligence standpoint, you're just validating their identity and validating their business. But hey, now you notice that they're opening up a new office and a new location. That can become an additional opportunity from a revenue generation standpoint. Anything to add to that, Chris or Frank or Kent?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, Rohan. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity just with the data that we have. Say nothing about going out and sourcing new data, although that does help supplement it. But there's multifaceted benefits, especially from a business development as well as from a proactive risk mitigation. And you're a perfect example of an address change that comes through on the Secretary of State through a refresh. And however you have that refresh set up, it could be good. It could be a good thing, or it could be something that could be a concern. And to be more proactive to that only benefits the organization, both from a risk perspective as well as from a business development perspective. So yeah, and that's why there's a lot of these things are, as I said before, are multifaceted. So you can address the needs of a sales organization, of a customer service collections part of the organization, with the same solution, with the same tools. So it's just a matter of defining that and building the use case, which again, as we've said it before, and maybe I sound like a broken record, but you don't have to boil the ocean. It can start small and expand from there as you start to get some experience and justify and build the business case around it.
Yeah, we pinpointed what the biggest pains to the organization was at, and we would tackle small projects along the way, improving things along the way, and adding to our automation stack to benefit the business for two ways. At the end of the day, was either the customer service side, expanded volume if we can, and the other thing is looking at risk.
Perfect. So I'll try to wrap this up. And the key objective of today's call was to ensure that everyone who is joining leaves with an actionable roadmap when it comes to their strategy, when it comes to using technology to solve business problems. So if all of you, right, Chris, Frank, Kent, if you had to bring out one key item or a key learning when it comes to having an actionable roadmap to thrive in the digital age within equipment finance? How would you refine everything into one point, right? So maybe we can start off with Chris first. I mean, obviously, you've spoken about not boiling the ocean and starting small and doing the POCs. But just for someone who is attending this call, who's confused where to start, what would be the one item which you would like to tell them that, hey, here is what would make it actionable from a roadmap standpoint to thrive in the digital age so that I can compete with my competition and I can offer a better customer experience. So starting with you, Chris.
Yeah, it's hard. So it's hard to describe just maybe one action. And I'll kind of touch on what I maybe said early on is around culture. This can't be done in a vacuum. It has to be an enterprise-wide initiative. And any digital solution, any technology forward approach really needs to be embraced by the organization because inevitably it's going to lead to doing something different. And it's a natural instinct of most people to avoid, deflect, put up barriers to anything that's different. I think that's a natural instinct of just about anybody. It becomes a threat. So if there's value that can be demonstrated through how this solution is going to make their job better, is going to make the organization better, the customer experience better, that needs to be addressed upfront and right away. And then the last thing, which I've said before, is start small with discrete use cases and be patient. Let the journey happen at a pace that isn't going to overwhelm and isn't going to feel like people are being excluded.
Thank you, Chris. Frank?
And just to reiterate what Chris said, again, is where the biggest impact you guys are experiencing business-wise that you would need some automation. You take project at a project time and try to solve the problems that are causing you the biggest impacts, whether it be inefficiencies, anything from a speed perspective. How do you get faster returns back to your customer, and how can you impact your customer? So again, start small, pick certain things that could be an impact, and data is the key. If you get good data and you got your data there, you could do multiple different types of things with your data.
Thank you, Frank. Kent, maybe you can touch upon use cases, ROI and stuff. Over to you, Kent.
So I'm going to come at this from a little different perspective. Both Frank and Chris are spot on in what they're identifying. But I would say from a implementation perspective, what's been successful for us is, map out what you're doing today and then map out where you want to be, what's your dream state, right? And I mean, not to tout ourselves because I'm part of DataCRaiM, but find a real trusted partner because that's a lot of knowledge and experience and a different perspective. And I think a lot of companies can't help but be caught up in their own cycle of thoughts, and having that different perspective come in and identify potentially unique solutions that you weren't aware of. That might be really something that is worth exploring that you didn't even know existed. So having that different perspective, however you get it, map out where you want to be, how you want to get there, and then come down to those bite-sized pieces and show that ROI. I think that, I'm sorry, did somebody have a question? I think the last thing I would say is, take that then roadmap and put it down into bite-sized pieces. So ingestion of documents is a really great win. If that's something that you can implement, you can show immediate success. And also, it's going to improve the bottom line. So it'll essentially pay for itself. So having those quick wins, having that roadmap, having that different perspective come in, however you get that in there, kind of breathe some fresh life into this world where there's just a myriad of options, I think will really help you get some clarity on how you get there, and then get that buy-in, and make sure you have the stakeholders on board, or else you're all going to be pushing that boulder from different perspectives and it won't roll anywhere. So getting everybody aligned is really important.
Thank you, Kent. So we promised we'll leave you with an actionable roadmap. So just to consolidate all the key messages from our panelists, right? Here's the actionable roadmap to thrive in the digital age within equipment finance. Take care of the data coming in. Ensure you have a data governance strategy. Ensure that you are building a single source of truth, right? And then the key thing is having the automation tools, having the ability to experiment, driving these small proof of concepts, right? Which drive quick return on investment. Ensure that you are able to find a good partner who can even bounce ideas and discuss out of the possible and work with you in an outcome-based scenario, right? The age of paying for time has gone, right? You don't want a partner who will just charge you by the hour. You want a partner who can drive results and who can charge you based on outcomes, and those partnerships are available. So find a good partner. So these are the three key messages and takeaways from today's session as an actionable roadmap to thrive in the digital age, right? Take care of your data governance, ensure there is great data coming in, have a single source of truth, and experiment. Have POCs and find a partner. Don't do it alone, right? Partner with someone, whether it is DataCRaiM or someone else, but find a good partner who can work with you to drive this transformation. Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions and for making this lively. I'll hand it over back to you, Skip, to conclude the session for today.
Yeah, thank you very much, all of you. And I have to just real quick in the couple minutes we have left before I say goodbye to all of you. Listening to all of this reminded me of one of my favorite childhood authors in a poem. When we talk about strategy and having a plan, I mean, I heard you guys talk about small bites, small successes, small wins. Have a roadmap. All of those things. And I don't know how many of you have heard of Shel Silverstein. I won't read the whole poem, but I did pull it up while I was listening here.
Where the sidewalk ends.
It's a poem called Melinda May. And if you saw the picture, it would be great too. But there's a picture of the old lady with a whale sitting on top of a table, like she's trying to eat. Have you heard of a tiny Melinda May who ate a monstrous whale? She thought she could. She said she would. So she started right at the tail. And then I won't read the rest of the poem, but at the end, and 99 years later, she ate the whale because she said she would. And what I got, I mean, she had a plan. I mean, it was overwhelming at first. And I think a lot of our members feel like that, or anyone who's trying to start with this. But as I listened to all of you today, I just thought of that. It's like, that's kind of, a lot of us feel like Melinda May sometimes, trying to, how are we going to eat our whale?
Perfect concept is Chris talking about right off the beginning. Don't boil the ocean.
Exactly.
You'll end up getting a whale.
Exactly. No, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you. I'm always appreciative of our volunteers. If you guys have, any of you are still on here, Rohan did throw an email in there. If you want to just chat with DataCRaiM about more specific items, with your own, specific use cases, they're available. But this will be recorded. We will get it posted up on our, learning management system within the week. And then don't forget our next knowledge exchange, which will be just after our fall conference in October. That will be the third Tuesday of October, and that one will be on leadership. So thank you, Frank, Chris, Rohan, Kent. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you all.